Well, good morning and welcome to issue 4 of our Tech Chat podcast. And it's really interesting that we're recording this on a very, very special day, and that is Global Accessibility Awareness Day. And I know you've all been waiting for and wondering about who the special guest is going to be. And it really couldn't be anyone else than our chairman, David Quarmby. So David, hello.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Pleased to be here.
So this Global Accessibility Awareness Day, it's something that's really sort of close to your heart in terms of, it really says everything about what KVIN is all about, doesn't it?
It does indeed. It's sort of been my mantra for a long time, for about 20 years, really. And I used to have it as a signature underneath my signature, just making that statement. And the statement is really, sounds lengthy, but it contains absolutely everything that should be included to make things accessible. And the statement is, inclusive design should be fully accessible and usable by the majority of people to the greatest extent without the need for any adaptation or specialist design. And that's the statement, and it's all products, services and environments. So it's every sort of thing you can think of, whether we're walking on a street, whether we're looking at products we buy, or whether it's the services that we receive. And I'll give a couple of examples if I can. Adaptation, well, you all are aware that if you go into a railway station, you've got this visual display in terms of getting your tickets. And it's not user-friendly for anybody who's got visual impairments, and for anybody who's blind, they can't access it at all. So it makes us reliant on other people. Now, to adapt that now is too costly, so they're not going to do it. And it's because they've not taken into account our particular access requirements when it was designed. Now, when you look at specialist design, a lot of products, if they're designed for visually impaired people, are very expensive. You think of the Polaris tablet and things like that are really essential for daily living for a lot of people, but they can't afford them because they're not in work, so they can't get access to work, and to actually pay for the cost of them, they're thousands of pounds. And really what we want is really inclusive design, design taken at the beginning of the design process from inception. And, you know, it makes it much easier then to cater for everybody's needs. And we always put up the iPhone or the iPad or Apple as being one of the leaders in that the iPhone costs the same for you or me or anyone else, and it's got all the accessibility features you can think of, really, to try and make it as fully accessible to everyone at the cost of purchase.
It certainly has, and we'll be talking about the iPhone a little bit later on, but just a bit of information in terms of the Global Accessibility Awareness Day. KVIN was actually founded before it. Global Accessibility Awareness Day didn't really start into 2013. It was a Canadian guy by the name of Joe Devon that founded it, and we will put some information available through the update on how you can listen to a YouTube interview with one of the other founders as well. But just an interesting fact for me from a low vision point of view was apparently 86% of homepages on websites still have difficulty in terms of using low contrast text. That's the biggest problem with web pages. And David, I know one of your favorites in terms of buttons that are not labeled.
Yeah,
that's a really big issue as well, with 53% of sites having issues where buttons are not labeled. So we we will put some information out there in terms of this Global Accessibility Awareness Day. And I know today a lot of our service users are participating in a range of different events that are being organised by the different companies. So we'll have a lot more to talk about. I'm sure we'll do an update on that in the podcast in a couple of weeks' time. But we said we'd go back to the iPhone, David. It's one of the biggest advances, but you've got some information in terms of an update.
Yeah, there's been an important update overnight, so it's there for people to download when they want to download the app. It puts it to 13.5. The two major things to be aware of about this, as well as bug fixes, etc., is that there's been a major bug fix for a security loophole that could allow someone to actually access the mail of someone's iPhone. And that became known about 4 weeks ago, and that's been a major thing that's been addressed by this. So I would urge people to update. The other thing is that Google and Apple have come together, and they've released in this update the exposure link to their health app, which allows then, when we do decide on our COVID-19 app for tracking, that it will link into the Apple Health, and it will allow us control over what information we actually share. So it's important for that when we come on to the COVID-19 tracking.
And that whole issue of health actually is something that has been really interesting to us in terms of KVIN and how we can move forward. And one of the things that we did, and this is some really exciting, more exciting news to be able to share with you, is that we applied for some funding from an organization called One Community, and there's a fund called the Charlesworth Fund. Anyway, the great thing is that funding has come through, and what we're going to be able to do now is to purchase some new pieces of equipment, it's like a thermometer, scales, and a blood pressure monitor that will link directly with an Android or with an iPhone. So we can test out these bits of kit that are coming from the different manufacturers to see how accessible they are. And I think I'm not necessarily looking forward to being able to say, Alexa, how much do I weigh? But we'll give it a go, and we'll see what happens. But David, I know testing these technologies is something that you're really passionate about, because they're going to be very important to us moving forward.
Yeah, I think for the last few years, I've been on lots of little committees, Patients Reference Network, Patients Participation Group, working with the Clinical Commissioning Group, etc. And as technology moves along, there's going to be that more we can do in terms of being aware and controlling the information that that we have in terms of our bodily functions, etc. So you've got the not only the blood pressure now, but you can monitor your blood sugars, and that's an app that is available. And there's going to be lots more wearable technology that can be used that allows us to be able to be aware of our health and pass on information that we want to, so that there's a move there towards self-care, self-management of our health. And that's what we all need. And it's important that people can use smartphones, can use these apps, can link to this wearable technology that's coming about, so that we can fully be aware of our health and live life to the full, basically, because we all want to enjoy life to the full, and that's what we're all about.
Yeah, I think that it's a really interesting thought, and I think for ourselves at KVIN, it's not just today. When we're trying these things, we're finding out about these things all of the time. So David, thank you very, very much for joining us. Thank you. In our next podcast, we're going to continue the theme of global accessibility awareness, because we're only part way into the day. And our service users, we're all going to be going in, attending and joining in lots of Zoom or team meetings to find out about all these different things. So I think in the next podcast, which will be me and someone else, has yet to be confirmed, we're not going to tell them who it is going to be next, are we, David?
No, we'll keep it a mystery. I think some people can guess.
I think some people might be able to guess, but you know, we're still negotiating with their agent at the moment. So from David and Mark, do enjoy what remains of Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and from our Tech Chat podcast.
Thanks. Keep using it.
Keep using it. Yes. Thank you. Goodbye.
Cheers. Bye now.